You're listening to the Mastermind Parenting Podcast with Randy Rubenstein, episode 25. So the big question is this: how do parents like us know that we aren't messing up the biggest role of our lives, especially when we happen to have a strong-willed child that's constantly pushing our buttons? We've all heard that kids don't come with a manual. So how can we know for sure that we're saying the right things or that we're getting this parenting thing right? Well, on this podcast for parents of toddlers to teens, we'll be giving you real tools you can use right away so that your kids will feel like they can talk to you about absolutely anything and everything. My name's Randy Rubenstein, and welcome to the Mastermind Parenting Podcast, where we believe when your thoughts grow, the conversations in your home flow. Welcome to the Mastermind Parenting Podcast. I have some fantastic guests today. I asked a couple that I worked with, and I haven't talked to really, well, a little bit I've talked to, but I haven't seen you guys in a year. And Carrie and Damien, they have three little kids, a 4-year-old little boy, and almost 3-year-old little girl, and then a 1-year-old little boy. And they took my basics course back in April of, was it 17? Was it 16? I think it's been 18 months.
Yeah, 2017.
Yeah. 2017. So, and since then they had their third baby. They moved to a different city. They've got 2 very busy careers. It's a very full, beautiful life. And so I invited them here because they reached out to me recently about something. And I just said, you know what? I would love for you guys to come on the podcast and just kind of have an organic conversation, catch up, find out where they are 18 months later, what some of their biggest takeaways are. And we also want to talk about my favorite personality assessment that they took, called the Colby, and just kind of what the effects of that has been on their marriage. So welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Okay. And so, first of all, my first question is, if you guys, and this is when I want to give Damien a shameless plug here, because, and y'all don't even know this. So the next group that I took through the course, it was the same as with your group, but your group, I think we were doing all the sessions in person. And so the dads were coming to the sessions. And so even though they weren't really going into the course site and doing the work outside the sessions, at least they were coming to the sessions and they were getting what we were covering there. So the next group that I ran, I started doing it virtually. And generally across the board, the moms were all kind of dialed in and loving it. And the dads weren't consuming the content. And so that's why I created this text app. I created an extra asset to the course where I literally for 30 days deliver a little bite-sized piece of content via text to your smartphone.
Oh my God.
And I created that because of the dads. Because at first I was just pissed, and I was like, well, what's the deal? Taking a parenting class is women's work? Like, what is this? And so then after I stopped being pissed, I was like, okay, I got to just meet the people where they are. And obviously the dudes are not going onto the online learning site, even though it couldn't be easier, even though most of them are tech savvy, they're not doing it. So when I started sending these little 10 and 15 minute audios for them to listen to in the car, on the go, on their commute, they started consuming it. I was like, okay, it's done. But Damien was one of the few dads ever who was just as invested as his wife. And you were listening and learning and talking to me about everything. And you were such a breath of fresh air.
Oh, thanks, Randy.
He's a super daddy.
He's a super, super daddy. And these guys have the cutest marriage ever. So, okay. So if I had to ask you guys, what would you say was the best result overall, or the biggest takeaway that y'all have received from taking the course 18 months ago? Could you say it or think of it in a nutshell?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh, there's so many. Yeah.
Yeah. For me personally, I think it was just how much content there was in the family. Like the kids became they became happier. They became more confident, I think, in everything. And I think for myself, I just got to enjoy parenting so much more because I had kind of control, knowing how they think or in their age group, just really helped. And I think by having, we get compliments all the time. Even just when we got back in Croatia, people could not believe that we had traveled pretty much 24 hours just to go to my sister's wedding even. I mean, they're just blown away. And then even just we had so many compliments, like
how patient we were, how well behaved our kids were, that they can't believe how patient and kind we are with our kids.
That's the biggest thing. Patient. They could not believe it. They're like, how can you guys just sit there and have the kids, scream or in full-blown tantrum, and you guys just
get down on their level,
try to
calm them down,
and they just couldn't believe it. They could not believe it. And one of the main comments I told my cousin was the one that said it. I was like, you know what, Bronx? I was like, I had to relearn how to breathe. I was like, it was just like completely relearning how to breathe. And I had to relearn how to focus my brain to where it was needed. So,
God, I mean, I just have to say, A, that's all such music to my ears, and B, there's a big story here. Like Damien, grew up in Croatia, and family came to America as immigrants. And I mean, I'll never forget, it will stick with me forever, when you told me that before you guys left Croatia, like there was 3 weeks where you guys were living on like dandelion soup.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I mean, we're talking, there's been really big experiences, and just how much you embraced, just kind of understanding those old programs and really being willing to kind of look back without camping out there forever, but just to kind of connect the dots and understand, like, I went through this really big experience. Of course, it's affecting me now as a dad. And then another thing that made a big impact on me was like when you told me how you were like, because all I'm seeing is like, you're like listening to the audios on the way to work, and you're so invested in your family, and you play with your kids, and, you guys are you're just such a good husband. Like you guys just have such a good deal going. And you were like, oh yeah, I used to be a really angry guy. Like I would get into fights when I was in college, and I was angry. I had a temper, and I can feel it. Now I can feel that boiling up inside of me sometimes, when the kids are pushing my buttons. And so like you were really honest about it, and you've really worked so I know to show up patient when you're in public and you got a 4-year-old or a 3-year-old in full blown meltdown because you've been traveling long distances, and, trips are hard on little kids. And you're over here, keeping your cool, like that's a really big deal.
Yeah.
It really is.
It takes a lot of effort, but I think just like just things that we've learned from your course really is, it's been like, I wouldn't be able to do it without that, honestly, because just relearning how to focus my thoughts and my thought structure, and then being able to translate that, and being, I guess, how do you say it, to be able to have my kids pick up on that calmness, and then working that way to calm them down, I think is very helpful.
I think the biggest thing I got out of your course was like understanding like ourselves better and where we come from as parents, like the things that may affect us and our little triggers, and then vice versa, to really understand our kids, because they're like little aliens and they're not on the same thought process as us, you know? So if I can understand where they're at in their development and where their minds are thinking and what's kind of important in their mind at that moment, it helps me to like, you know, communicate and connect with them and really kind of get down on their level. So it's like a vice versa thing. I learned more about them. At the same time, I learned like why I am the way I am, and kind of helps me like be okay with myself as a mom too. Like, this is the way I am. This is what I want to do. This is why I am the way I am. And I can like be a great mom because I can make this connection, you know? So I don't know.
It's crazy. I mean, everything she just said, completely 100% agree with. I mean, I felt like I learned so much about myself in your course. I mean, things that I don't know.
You don't even realize.
I'm a very thoughtful guy and I think a lot. And I mean, I didn't even get to some of these like corners or depths, you know, that, you know, I thought I knew myself, but man, it was like, I mean, I remember Carrie and I just talking and being like, oh my gosh.
This makes so much sense.
This makes so much sense now. And more importantly, like, what some of these things that my kids used to do, why does that affect me the way it does? You know, just why does it just tear my nerves when I hear them just screaming and crying? And I don't know, just being able to dig and figure all that out just helps so much, and calming them down. So calming myself down first. So.
No, do you, and honestly, this is a question, you know, like when we trace back the roots of some of those triggers of like, you know, why does it grate on my nerves when my son does this certain behavior or my daughter does this certain behavior? And so we went through that exercise where I took you guys through it and we really found the root of that trigger, right? I mean, do you think it's like what are your thoughts on then the next time and the next time and the next time that your child shows up doing that behavior after you have traced back the roots of the trigger? Like, I want you to kind of explain what happens and how you kind of work through that and what the effects are.
Yeah. Well, and initially, I think the first few times, I think it takes effort. It takes a lot of effort the first few times, I think, to kind of figure out, okay, this is why this is annoying me so much, right? Or this is why my temper is flaring. But after a while, it becomes second nature. And it's almost like you don't even, it doesn't even take effort on my part to be like, oh, this is why my temper is flaring right now. It's like almost like an automatic reaction. And so the first, it takes a while. In my opinion, it takes it took me quite a while to kind of first figure out that this is the trigger and figure out that this is what I want my response to be, but this is what my response should be. And so then to kind of calm myself down and then to be able to just get down to the kids level and really focus more on the kids too, like focus on, okay, they're, not even focus on them crying, but focus on them as why they're crying. Right. And so
getting underneath it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it was just so helpful to be able to do that, because I feel like that's where a lot of their content is from. I'm not struggling with, oh my gosh, they're crying again. I'm actually completely able to focus my energy on why are they crying? So.
Right.
Yeah.
But the thing I was gonna, the interesting thing is the reason it takes a while, and tell me if you disagree, is like, so we figure out I take you through the exercise, where's the root of the trigger? And the whole goal is I take you through the exercise, but then eventually like you're going to be able to do it for yourself.
Oh, yeah.
So, I tell everyone my job is to coach myself out of a job. Right. So I show you how, like, well, let's figure out where this, this is annoying you so much. That's called a trigger. So there's got to be roots. Let's figure that out. Let's get curious about where it comes from. It's kind of cool to kind of look back and be like, where does that come from? And so then once you realize where it comes from, well, now the next step is recognizing the signals and sensations in your body when you are triggered, instead of just being on autopilot like we typically are, right? Like being like, okay, I'm triggered right now. My heart's racing. I can feel it. It feels like there's steam wanting to come out my ears. My fists are clenched. Like, we're not even aware that we're having reactions like that. And then we just react and explode and then feel guilty later. So there's like those pieces of, okay, I know the roots of the trigger. Now I actually have to get back in touch with my body and what happens in my body during those moments when something's reminding my brain of those roots. And so like that whole process of, something happens in your environment. It triggers a thought that's from an old memory. That memory causes your body to literally have a physical reaction, and then you behave and react based on that. Like connecting those dots, it takes a minute to learn that. And then once we learn it, it literally, that's why I'm calling it now Mastermind Parenting, because we have to master our mind to be the parent we want to be. And so it's like connecting all those dots. Once you learn how to do it, well, then you start doing it like all day, every day in every relationship. Have y'all kind of experienced that? Or
1,000%.
1,000%. Even at work. I mean, even at work.
It transcended through everything, interactions with everybody.
It's amazing. It's amazing. It's like, I mean, really, it's like we come to this because we're like, okay, my kid won't listen. They're having tantrums. I don't want to be a yelling parent. Like we love them so much that we're like, fine, I'm willing to learn the stuff and sit through a parenting class on a weeknight after I worked all day, right? Because I love these little people and I want to do things as great as possible. And then we find that like we learn these skills and we take it way beyond parenting. Okay, so I want to shift gears for a second on, because this is something that my husband says, like last time when I was enrolling for my basics course, and we're about to start enrolling again, but we've changed like the pricing structure, and I was like, you know what, I think it's too expensive and people aren't signing up. And I was telling him, and he's like, I don't understand. People spend so much money on therapy, and I've never seen anyone get the results from marriage counseling that we got from taking a parenting course almost 20 years ago. And he's like, why don't you just tell the people that, like, why don't you just tell them, like, if this is better than marriage counseling? I'm like, well, it's one thing for me to say it, but I want to hear from you guys. I mean, I do think that you guys came to me with a very special relationship and a very special bond, like before you ever took my course. So I just have to put that out there. But I think that the piece I want to talk to y'all about is I had offered, I have this assessment called the Colby that a lot of companies take, like if you guys think about Myers-Briggs or any of those kind of personality assessments, this is kind of in the same line as that. But Colby is more about like how your brain is wired and how you were meant to face a challenge, like if a challenging task happens. And it's this very kind of quick assessment, and companies use it because they really want to figure out how the team at a company is meant to work together. Because you don't want to have everybody with the same wheelhouse. You want to have, it's like a soccer team. You need a goalie and you need I don't even know all the different soccer positions. you need a coach, you need an assistant coach, you need a goalie, you need somebody who's the person that's taking it down the field that's going to kick it into the goal. That's right. So my children and my husband would probably be mortified right now. So I've been a spectator at many soccer games over the years. So you guys took the Colby, and what I say about the Colby is I'm like, even though it's typically used in a corporate environment. I love it because my belief is that the family is a team and we all are valuable players. And even though mom and dad are the coaches, like everyone is a valuable team player. So if we want everyone to feel valued and celebrated, we have to honor how each other is naturally wired. And the only way to truly do that for our kids is to start doing it with ourselves first. And so you guys took me up on it, and you took the assessment, and you took the assessment, and I want to hear like how it's affected your marriage, or, you know, like I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't totally expecting all the impact that I think it had. And yeah, I think we had a totally special relationship before we did that, but I think it has given us like such insight to how each other works, and to just like even take a step and realize that's just the way you are. Like I'm going to accept you and love you, and there's those strengths, and then accept and love me and my little quirks, because that's just the way I am. And like we can work together like with our strengths and our weaknesses to like be an even better team without, I don't know, this is so hard. I didn't even like realize. I know him. I realize this, but I guess I never like delved into exactly like that is like the root of him. This is the root of him. This is like never changing. And like, this is what makes him awesome. And this may be what his few weaknesses are. And same with me. And this is like, I think in like everyday life too, like, oh, he's working on something, and you know what? He has to do that. That is like, that's the way he has to go about to do this.
My driftwood project.
Yeah, his projects, right? He's got a few projects. I'm like, he has to do that. That is just like part of him.
You should see my stuff. You'll love it. I'll send you some.
He will. He'll make you a gift. Yeah. But like, that's just the way he is. And like, I'm just going to like accept it and love it now, because that's like super important. And he needs to kind of go through these processes to get to where he's at. Like, and it helps in multiple ways to realize like, this is who he is. He's coming from a very good place. Like, and this is the process he needs to take to get there. Like we're only looking out for each other. We're coming from places of good, but this is how each other operates. And it kind of, I don't know, helps us just be more patient with each other and understand each other. Even though I thought I understood him 1,000% before I took it, it really was life changing. And I know like you're not a marriage counselor, but like you say, like this, not that I, marriage counseling, I thought we did, but this has like changed our marriage and taken it to like a whole new level where it's so special. Like I wish other people, I hope they have this, So, and I think that definitely like boosted it to this level we weren't expecting.
Yeah. I mean, it was on me, it had such a crazy impact that, I mean, the first thing when I even found out my sister was engaged or that they were getting married, literally one of the first things that popped into my head was the Colby test. And
because it's like an invaluable gift.
Yeah, it's just an invaluable gift. Like you can't. What am I gonna?
But like,
what am I gonna give them? What am I, an apron?
This is like life changing, to grow their marriage.
and it's something that nobody can take that away from them. That when they get those results and they sit down with you and have you look at them and you guys can have a genuine discussion about everything, that is just like invaluable. I mean, it's going to prevent so many, problems down the road. And in my opinion, especially now that they're just starting to have their own kids and things like that, that is just invaluable. I mean, it's completely invaluable. To me, it's really sad to see, when people don't get along or they start splitting their families apart, when all that it's really needed is just some effort, some work on everyone's part. And
communication and understanding, which is the parenting course, that's what it really is.
Exactly.
Communication tools, like learning to see, we study about basic child development because the goal is to see our kids' perspectives and to see them as the little unique people that they were born to be, and to learn to celebrate and honor the little unique people they were born to be, but also realizing that the family's a team and we're the head coaches, we're the pack leaders, and we have to show up firmly, lovingly, and we have to implement structure, and we have to, we have to be that team leader, but also like not, it's not a democracy, but it's also not a dictatorship. And it's like, and to be able to honor who our kids were born to be and really celebrate them, like we have to learn to celebrate ourselves and to study your own brain and your partner's brain, and to learn to laugh at yourself for some of those quirks, and to celebrate some of those things where you're like, you know what? I'm a fact finder. We're thinking about moving across the country. I'm going to find where the best schools are. I'm going to, like where you guys divide and conquer. And did you have some of that going on?
Learned way more about it, like myself too, so that I'm like, okay, why would I want to do that activity? That is just like not joyful for me. Like, don't even go there anymore. Like, don't torture yourself. And that's just part of who you are. Like, don't do it. Or if you're going to do it, make sure that you have like a month to prepare for it, and you're going to like feel confident. Or, like even going to Croatia, like we both are preparing like so much, but I know that's the way we are. Like, that's what we're going to do. And like,
and it was crazy because we like split everything up. We had this huge whiteboard, and it was like Carrie's to-do list, Damien's to-do list. And it was just so funny. Like, it was kind of funny to just look at this list and like see, and I told Carrie, I'm like, Carrie, like just write. Don't think, just write. I don't care what it is, just write, because it's going to actually help me see what's on Carrie's mind. And then that way I can help her. Maybe I can take a thing or two off of her to-do list without her even knowing. Like if I see that we need to pack a bunch of sunblock, right? Well, maybe I can do that, right? And she doesn't have to worry about it, and vice versa, and things like that. And so that was really helpful too.
It's so awesome. I mean, that's it. I think that the core of it all is really, all anyone wants as a human is like there's this whole, low self-worth epidemic that's going on, because people just want to know, like, do you see me? Do I matter? So when you study your own brain and you do something like that assessment, and you're like, okay, I'm going to learn about my brain. I'm also going to learn about your brain too. And it starts to come up in basic conversation. We're planning for this big trip. We have 3 little kids and 2 big careers, and we're going for a family wedding, and we're traveling 24 hours to Croatia. And it's this whole thing that could be a total shit show. And instead, we know the way both of our brains are wired. Like, we don't even have to question it. We're putting the whiteboard out. Here's our system. You start writing. I'm going to start writing. We're going to work as a team. We're going to figure this out. And then it's like, it's just this constant reassurance of my partner loves me so much that they're willing to meet me exactly where I am. And so it's just this constant, I think, trickling of like boosting your self-worth and making you feel like this is who I am. And if it doesn't feel joyful, I'm not doing it. Mm-hmm. Like, my body's telling me, no, not in your best interest, not doing it. And I'm not going to argue with that anymore. And having a partner who speaks the same language, and then you're taking it to your children, and you're creating this family team where everyone gets to be a unique individual and you all work together. Like, really, I mean, you guys are, I mean, I'm so glad that we're catching up on all this, because last time I saw you, it was like baby number 3 was popping out. We've got 2 careers. We're moving across the country. There's a lot going on. Mm-hmm. And so now, a year later, to just hear that you just got back from Croatia and like life is going the way it's going, I mean, my heart feels full. So I love it.
Ours
too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, thanks to you, Randy. I mean, you taught us how to communicate. I mean, in ways I had no idea. I mean, it was even
so
possible.
Helpful.
So, and I think that's honestly the biggest thing of why our kids are so content, is they know they're heard, and they know that, we're there for them. I mean, it's just amazing. And same with, Carrie and I, it's just so much of it is just communication. I mean, it truly is.
You guys are unbelievable. I love y'all to pieces, and I love getting to see my podcast listeners can't see your face because we're doing this interview via Zoom, but because I wanted to see your faces, but everybody out there is just going to get the audio recording, and but I love catching up, and we'll be in touch.
We love you, Randy. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, bye guys.
Bye. Good night.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to the podcast today. If you're ready to take your learning further and go deeper with me in my Mastermind monthly membership, you can go to mastermindparenting.com/join. mastermindparenting.com/join. Looking forward to seeing you in the tribe.